Look at this fun project we're tackling today. Yes, we are cleaning brushes and makeup sponges and powder puffs. So I'm going to share with you my secrets of how you can make this as painless as possible. The main key components are these right here. And the star of the show is the Dr. Bronner's 18-in-1 Pure Castile soap. I use the hemp and lavender, but there are several other scents. This is a highly concentrated soap, so I'll show you in a moment how that works. I also have the same soap in bar form, and then I have a plastic bowl and this Sigma brush cleaning mat. You can get this in other brands as well, but I just have the Sigma one. And then I've taken this long towel and I folded both ends of it over just once. I'll show you why that's important at the end. So now to get started, this brush cleaning mat has suction cups, so you can suction it in the bottom of your sink so that as you are working, it's not going to be sliding all over. Very important. Now I'm going to take this soap and I'm doing eye brushes, so I'm going to do about 8 to 10 drops of soap. And then I'm adding lukewarm water. You want to make sure that your water is not too hot, but you do need it to be a little bit warm. So I have already previously divided out my brushes into eye brushes and face brushes, and that's just how I like to clean them. As I am setting the brushes in the water, I'm making sure that the ferrule, the top of that metal part, is not going below the water level. You want to try and keep as much water from going up past that metal part as possible, because that is where the glue is, and over time it can loosen the glue. All right, now that I've got this first set in there, I'm rolling up my sleeves and here we're going to get started. So you can see I have quite a stack of brushes in my hand, and I can't reiterate enough how gently I am swirling these brushes. So the brushes are barely touching the bottom of that bowl, and I'm just gently swishing them back and forth, and I'm letting the soap dissolve all of the makeup off of those brushes. But you do just need to gently swirl it for a few minutes, and then what I like to do is take about 2 brushes at a time. This is why I like to kind of separate the brushes out into similar type of brushes, because the length of the bristles is about the same, so I can swirl them together on the brush cleaning mat. And again, I'm being very gentle. You want to make sure you're not crushing those brush hairs. You've paid a lot of money for these brushes, so you want to make sure they last a very long time. So I'm just going about 2 brushes at a time, and I'm making sure that as I pull them up and wipe off the soap, that there's no residual makeup or eyeshadow or anything left on those bristles. And you can see they are all coming out looking sparkling clean. So I'm just gathering several brushes, this kind of first batch, all at once in my hand. And you can tell I'm also trying to save as much water as possible as I'm doing this process. So I'm keeping the water off until I'm done with this first batch of washing. And then I'm going to now rinse the brushes kind of in groups as well. So now what's really important as you rinse, because this soap has essential oils in it, you really want to make sure that you do rinse the bristles very well. So again, I am using kind of lukewarm water. I did kind of rinse off my mat, because if I feel after rinsing them that there's still a little soap stuck in there, I like to just kind of gently run it across the mat. So here again, I'm going to take a batch of maybe 5 or 6 brushes, rinse those, and I'm squeezing the water out, being very gentle but firm. And then as I'm done with those 5 or 6 brushes, I will just set them on the towel behind me. And in a few moments after I get this batch done, I will then kind of spread out all of the brushes on the towel and get started on the next batch. So this goes pretty quickly. You can move through those brushes quick because you're doing a whole batch kind of all at once. You're setting them in the soap. It really doesn't take long at all to break down the makeup on those brushes, and then it's just a matter of making sure that you rinse things well. Now I set aside one brush. I'll show you why in a moment. But if there's any stubborn kind of cream products that you're having a hard time getting off, I'll show you a trick of how we do that. But I'm just going to speed through this next batch of eye brushes, doing the same thing. But again, be sure you're being gentle as you are scrubbing it on that brush mat. And these brush mats are designed to help you not hurt your brushes. And you'll see all of that makeup that was in that water, and yet it was still cleaning the brushes. So now I'm just going to go through, do the same process I did before, rinse a group of brushes and set them aside to dry. Now for the face brushes, I use a little more soap, probably 10 to 12 drops. And because the face brushes are a little bit taller, usually I can add a little more water, but I'm doing the same process. And with face brushes, I kind of like to do all of the brushes that I've used with powder products in one batch together. And then my cream products, the brushes I've used for cream products or foundations, I like to do those brushes in a separate batch. And so that's just my personal preference. You don't have to do it that way. If you don't have as many brushes to wash, you can certainly put them all together in the bowl. But I just find that the water stays a little bit cleaner with the brushes I've used on the powder products. And then once we get to foundation, you're going to see it can take a couple of passes through that bowl to get them completely clean. Now on the brush mat, there is a section that is for larger face brushes. So that's the section I'm using to wash these brushes. Same exact process. I am just making sure that after rubbing them on the mat, I look at the brushes carefully, make sure all of the color and all of the product is out of them. So you'll be able to tell if they're clean, and if they're not, go back through and cycle them through, and you can see that bowl had pretty dirty water, so we're going to change it out again, adding about 10 to 12 drops. And now I'm going to show you what I do with brushes that might have a little more kind of stuck on cream products or stubborn cream products, like a lip brush. Even I'll show you in a moment an eyebrow spoolie brush. So I'm going to use almond oil. You can also use olive oil. You can use several different types of oil, but you're going to use an oil to help break down the oils in these cream products. Now you don't always have to do this, but I just do this on brushes that I find have particularly packed on makeup. So a lip brush I find is very difficult to clean without doing that process first. Now this brush had a bunch of dried on concealer because it had been several weeks since I'd washed it. So I had set it aside and that concealer had really dried. This brush had some kind of really thick, heavy product, so that took a little bit. And then this BK Beauty brush, I use this several times before washing it. And sometimes with the more long-wearing foundations, they can be a little more difficult to get off the brush. So I am just swirling that on the paper towel with the oil until I find that it looks pretty clean. Now this eyebrow spoolie brush, I told you I was going to show you how to clean that. I don't know if you've ever tried to clean those before, but the oil will break down everything that is on there and it makes it super easy. So now I'm just going through my foundation brushes, and I have a couple more that are super dense that I feel like have a lot of foundation. So again, I'm swirling them in the oil on this paper towel. And I don't have to have them completely clean, but I just want to make sure that all of that foundation has been completely broken down. And I'm then going to have to go through a couple of batches of that soapy water. Because we used an oil, again, you're going to want to make sure that you really thoroughly wash all of the oil out of those brushes. So going in a second time to cleanse these brushes. And now the process is exactly the same. Just using my brush cleaning mat. And because there was oil, it'll take a couple of times before you start seeing suds up. But then you can make sure that when you feel the brush, you don't feel any more oil on them. So just make sure you really, really thoroughly clean and rinse your brushes so that you don't have any residual soap or oil remaining. So with the smaller brushes, it's a little bit easier to tell. With these bigger brushes, you might have to go back and forth a few times between the bowl, the mat, rinsing, bowl, mat, but you'll be able to tell once it's completely clean. And then make sure you give them a really good rinse. The BK Beauty brush, I find that this one I have to thoroughly rinse and soap up several times to make sure that I don't have anything left in there because the bristles are so dense. This EcoTools brush is similar with the denseness of the bristles. You really want to make sure you kind of comb through those bristles, make sure there's no makeup hiding in there anywhere, and then make sure you really rinse it well. And again, it looks like I'm being harsh, but I'm being very gentle as I am washing through, and then just squeeze out the bristles. Be careful not to pull down, just squeeze very firmly, and then reshape the brush and lay it out to dry. Now I'm going to show you how to clean powder puffs. So I fill that bowl full of soapy water and just place those powder puffs in there to soak. Set that aside, and now I'm going to show you how, if you want to just clean an individual brush, this is the way I do it. So this is the Angie Hot and Flashy Concealer Brush, and so I will often wash this in the middle of the week when I don't have other brushes to wash, and so I'm taking that Dr. Bronner's bar soap and just wetting the brush and the soap and swirling that brush in the soap until all of the concealer is off, and you'll see it is completely clean. And then you just rinse it well, squeeze the water out, and it's ready to dry. Now you can also use the almond oil to remove stains on your beauty sponges. So this is the Stands Out sponge. And once again, I have let the makeup set on there for probably 2 weeks, so it is quite stained. And then I have a bunch of these makeup sponges, and you'll see kind of the same thing. This blue one is thoroughly covered in dried foundation. So I'm just taking that oil, and before I wet the sponge, working that oil through, and it is just thoroughly breaking down that foundation that has dried in the sponge. So I'm doing this as a first step, and then we're going to go in with the Dr. Bronner's bar soap. Again, I'm using the lavender one. You can use whichever scent you prefer, but I am first running the sponge across the bar of soap, rinsing it out, running it across the bar of soap, just kind of really making sure that as I'm squeezing the soap out, I am rubbing the surface, and then I'm watching the water that I'm squeezing out to make sure I keep washing and rinsing until that water runs clear. So the Stands Out sponge now looks brand new. And then I'm going to go to that blue sponge in a moment, but now I need to thoroughly wet and expand these sponges first. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to take that blue sponge, and again, same process. I'm rubbing it across the bar of soap. Now you want to make sure with your sponges you're not using the brush cleaning mat, because that will actually break down the surface of your sponge and create little divots and cracks in it. So you want to be careful. But again, just going back to the bar of soap, rinsing it out, back to the bar of soap, and then doing a thorough rinse, making sure to get all of the soap out of it. And you're going to see a blue sponge that again looks almost brand new. So just because you forgot to wash your sponges for a while doesn't mean you have to throw them away. You can get them clean again. Now this final project are the powder puffs, and I just kind of wash them like I'm washing clothes. The key though is to make sure you do not use too hot of water, because the hot water will break down some of the glue that they use as part of some of these powder puffs. And if you have any stubborn stains as you are rubbing them gently together, you can use that Dr. Bronner's bar soap to help clean them. And then once again, I just run them under water until they rinse clean, stack them up, making sure to wring out as much water as possible, and then I will lay them on my towel to dry. Now we are all done cleaning brushes, so let's just clean up real quickly. The Sigma brush cleaning mat, I just use a little bit of Dawn dish soap and rub that all over it, just making sure to clean off any residual makeup that might be on there. I just use a paper towel to kind of dry it off a little bit, and then you want to make sure you air dry it thoroughly so it doesn't grow any mold. Now you'll look at my sink and it's not dirty, but that soap, because of the essential oils, it leaves a film on stainless steel sinks. So it took me a while to figure this out, but all I do is take that Dawn dish soap. I use the green apple antibacterial one. That's just the one we always use. And I'm just taking a kitchen scrubber, scrubbing the whole sink out and every area that has that kind of dull appearance on it. And then I'm going to just rinse it out thoroughly. And you're going to see that by doing that, it just removes that layer of kind of film that was on there, and the sink is now nice and bright and clean. And then I just take a little Windex, antibacterial Windex, and a paper towel and wipe down the whole top of the sink, the handle, and then wipe out the inside of the sink. And we have now a bright and shiny, crystal clean sink. So that's just a little tip in case that has happened to you. Just use a little Dawn dish soap. Now here are the fruits of our labors. Look at all of those brushes. Now you can see by folding over the edge of that towel just once, it helps keep the brushes at a slight downward angle so that the water drains out. You don't want the water to go back up into the ferrule. You do want to make sure that you reshape your brushes when they are wet. That is the key time to do it. And now we just let them dry overnight, and they're nice and clean and ready for tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.